we are live. Welcome to today's educational voice chat. Today is June 20th, Juneteenth, and we're going to be talking about liquidity pools and yield farming today. We'll talk about what they are, what liquidity pools are, how they work, and then how yield farming was created and why it was created and how it works fundamentally once we understand what liquidity pools are. Okay, so let's just dive right into it. This is going to be a little bit complex. There's more that goes to this that I tried to trim the fat on and cut out to keep this video short. We'll do some more in-depth videos and put them inside of our private educational Discord. But for now, we know it's really important for people to understand fundamentally how decentralized finance works if we want to try to explain it to other people. Okay, so what are liquidity pools? Liquidity pools are reserves of tokens that are secured within a smart contract hosted by decentralized exchanges or DeFi protocols. They are the core technology behind the decentralized finance ecosystem. Okay, so what is a liquidity pool? In order to understand the difference, or really to understand what a liquidity pool is and why it was created, why this technology was created, we first need to understand the difference between centralized finance and decentralized finance. Okay, so in centralized financial systems, such as the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, and various centralized exchanges like Coinbase, Binance, KuCoin, an order book model is used to execute trades. In this order book model, buyers and sellers come together and place their orders. Buyers attempt to purchase a specific asset for as low as possible, while sellers try to sell the same asset for as high as possible. Okay, for a trade to be executed in this model, both the buyers and sellers must converge and agree on a set price. This can happen by a buyer bidding a higher price point or a seller lowering their selling price. But what if nobody's willing to place their orders at a fair price? What if there aren't enough coins to purchase to fill an order? So how does a liquidity pool work? This is where what we call market makers come into play. Okay, so a market maker is an entity that facilitates trading by always willing to purchase or sell a particular asset, regardless if there's a matching buy and sell in an order book. In doing this, they are providing liquidity so the users can always trade without having to wait for a buy or sell order to match in order to execute the exchange. Okay, so if you look at Binance's trading platform, you can see the order book right here. Right, there are people placing orders at certain prices and people selling orders at certain prices. And in order for these trades to be executed, there must be an agreement that is met between both sides. Okay, so on decentralized exchanges, or in decentralized finance, the traditional order book model is replaced by the pre-funded on-chain liquidity pools for both the assets of the trading pair. The advantage of using liquidity pools is that it allows you to not require a buyer and a seller to decide and agree to exchange two assets for a set price. What does this mean? No more bartering with traders or paying pesky middlemen like the exchanges, right? The exchanges take trading fees, and that's how they make all of their money. So if the parameters are met, the transaction will be processed automatically by the smart contract with minimal slippage, assuming the liquidity pool is large enough to facilitate the trade efficiently. Okay, so I know this was a bit of a fire hose to the face right off the bat, but it's important to understand the difference between something like an order book in a centralized exchange and liquidity pools on decentralized exchanges. Okay, so if we go to analytics here, yeah, it's going to be on. Oh, that's not right. There we go. Pairs. So you can see if you go to NightSwap and you click on analytics and view the tokens or the pairs, this will populate in a sec. You can see all the different liquidity pools that are represented on this exchange. Okay, so Night BUSD, BNB BUSD, BUSD Guard, DAI USDT, Forge BNB. So this is all of the liquidity pools that add up the total TVL on the platform. Okay, so each one of these is a pre-funded on-chain liquidity pool that facilitates trades between the two assets. that make sense to everybody? So fundamentals, now we kind of lock in the fundamentals. So a liquidity pool is also commonly referred to as an automated market maker. Okay, so we just talked about market makers here. A liquidity pool is essentially an automated version of a market maker. Okay, so each token swap that has a liquidity that a liquidity pool facilitates results in a price adjustment of the assets within the pair. The price of an asset is dictated by a deterministic pricing algorithm used by the liquidity pool. This algorithm is called a constant product market maker and is commonly represented by the equation X times Y equals K. I just put Y and Z for some reason, but I'm going to go into more depth on this in a different video. This is really complicated, and it's not necessary, in my opinion, to really understand fundamentally how everything works. If you're a nerd like me and you want to understand the math behind liquidity pools and how things interact when assets are taken away from or put into the pool, I'll do another video on that, and we'll make sure to get that to our private educational Discord. Okay, so you can see here, this gets complex. For the sake of time, we will break it down further later. Okay, so the price that you see on a data aggregator like DexTools or PooCoin is an estimate of this ratio updated in real time in a simple user interface. So if we're looking at the price here, this price is calculated by the ratio of the pool. Okay, so how do you calculate the price of an asset? You can see here, it says use the equation below to manually calculate the price of Forge. And if you guys want to, you can grab your calculator and you can do this with me. Okay, it's very simple. So the example is the pooled BNB times the current price of BNB divided by the amount of pooled Forge tokens equals the current price. Okay, so if we're looking at the amount of pooled BNB right now, and I did this equation a little bit ago, so it's going to be a little different now, but we can see that there's 384 pooled BNB. Okay, so if we take 384, I'll do the new math right now. So we take 384 times current price of BNB, which is about $215. We get 82,560. If we divide that by the total amount of pooled Forge tokens in the liquidity pool, which is 13 million, divided by 13, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, we get 0.00635. Okay, so pretty close. The price of BNB has probably gone up or something. It's gone up a little bit. So it's a little bit skewed, but you can see that the price hasn't reflected necessarily accurately. So these user interfaces aren't exactly correct, right? And that's why there's different prices across different exchanges. Like if we had a liquidity pool on PancakeSwap and we had a liquidity pool on NightSwap, they would have two different prices because they are separate liquidity pools and the ratio in those pools are different. Now, whenever there's a difference in the market that's profitable enough to move between, that's what we call arbitrage opportunities, where market makers come in and they'll buy wherever it's cheaper and sell where it's more expensive to even out the price. Okay, that's how they make the market. Does that make sense to everybody? So if Forge was 0.0064 on NightSwap, and then on PancakeSwap it was 0.005, people would go and the market makers would go and buy on PancakeSwap at 0.005 and take it over and sell it on the NightSwap exchange because there's a 5% difference that they can capitalize on. Now, as long as the taxes still make that trade profitable, then the arbitrage bots or market makers will continue to do that to even out the market across several exchanges or liquidity pools. Okay, so I did the math earlier and came out to this. It's a little different now, but it's pretty close. So now that we've kind of gone over that, to clarify, the assets in these liquidity pools are provided by other users in order to facilitate trading and exchanges between the two assets in the pair. Okay, so on NightSwap, we provided liquidity when we launched a project. And if you guys are gold mine and chilling, you're providing liquidity. So you're providing the assets necessary for other people to trade efficiently within this exchange. Okay. Where are we? Here we are. So these liquidity providers earn a passive yield via the trading fees associated with every exchange made between the two assets in the pair. So if I was to exchange Forge for BNB or BNB for Forge, and I have liquidity pool tokens, then I'm earning a very small percentage proportionate to my size of the pool, to my share of the liquidity pool, of the transaction fee associated with that exchange. This is what we call liquidity pool mining. Okay, and before yield farming was around, this was all that really existed. Okay, so when you provide liquidity for an asset pair, you receive back LP tokens that are proportionate to your share of that liquidity pool. The liquidity provider earns a percentage of the trading fees based on his or her percentage ownership of that liquidity pool. So let's say you own 80% of the entire Forge BNB liquidity pool. Every time an exchange between Forge and BNB is facilitated by the liquidity pool, you receive 80% of that trading fee that is collected by the exchange for that transaction. This happens on every trade. Okay, so to give you an example, on PancakeSwap, one of the largest decentralized exchanges, the total transaction fee is 0.2%. So every time a transaction happens, PancakeSwap collects 0.2% of that transaction. Of that, 0.17% gets distributed proportionately to the liquidity providers. That means they keep 0.03%, and the other 0.17% gets distributed to the people who provided liquidity for that pair. Everybody following along? It's a little complicated, I know. So liquidity pool mining pays out in LP tokens. So if your pair is Forge BNB, the fees that you're collecting via liquidity pool mining will be LP tokens for that pair. That means that you'll be earning more Forge and more BNB passively. However, you won't be able to see the fees accumulating in real time. It just doesn't show up on the user interface. The only time you'll be able to see those fees that were accumulated is when you actually break the liquidity pair. So when you go in and remove liquidity, you'll receive those fees. Okay, you won't be able to see it in real time. It's a bit of a pain in the butt that you can't. But NightSwap has an awesome feature that they just added. You can see on the farms here, they added a little percentage plus next to the APR, and you can see that this is adding a certain percentage. This is based off of the trading fees. It's an estimation based off of the trading fees that are currently happening with the asset pair. Okay, so you're getting on Guard, you're getting 4.57% plus an additional 6.88% in trading fees. Okay, so for assets with higher volume like Guard, you're going to get much more out of liquidity pool mining versus something like Forge, which is newer and not as much volume. It's much lower, right? But our APR is much higher because there's less people in our farm. All right, so sounds exciting, right? Keep in mind, the trading fee percentage on each transaction is very small, but they add up over time. Regardless of buys or sells, you are accumulating more. Okay, and we talked about this in one of our previous yield farming videos, and we'll talk about it a little bit later when we get further down this document. Okay, all right, I think I'm getting it now. So how does yield farming work then? Well, yield farming was created to further incentivize users to provide liquidity. In order for a decentralized exchange to function properly and efficiently, large amounts of liquidity must be provided by its user base. Okay, the users providing liquidity allows the exchange to facilitate trades between many different assets with minimal slippage. In order to lure investors to provide liquidity for the decentralized exchange, the exchange provides high rates of return in their native token. Okay, so for NightSwap, and we'll talk about this in a bit, NightSwap, the native token is Night. On PancakeSwap, the native token is Cake. On ApeSwap, the native token is Banana. So they are giving you something in return for providing liquidity that holds monetary value. Okay, and that asset can depreciate or appreciate, or you can use it in different ways, which we'll talk about right now. Okay, to do this, the DEX provides LP token pools called farms, for liquidity providers to deposit their LP tokens into. Okay, so when you provide liquidity, you get LP tokens back. Before yield farming, you would just accumulate liquidity pool mining fees, but there was nowhere else to put those LP tokens or to do anything with. Okay, this allows the liquidity provider to earn both the native token of the DEX in addition to the normal liquidity pool mining fees collected via that pair. Okay, so as an example, if you provide equal shares of Forge and BNB as a liquidity pair on NightSwap, and then deposit those LP tokens you receive into the Forge BNB farm, you start to earn yield in NightSwap's native token, which is Night. Okay, we all know this by now, but for those who are new or just learning, you can see here, if I stake my LP tokens in, I would receive Night earned. I would receive Night, which then I could harvest and I could go do other things with, which we'll talk about right now. The DEX then incentivizes people to not sell the Night token they earn by creating what's known as pools. On NightSwap, there's a distinction because they are called raids on NightSwap. And they're not called raids pretty much anywhere else I've seen. It's just a cool distinction that we created within NightSwap, okay? But you'll see here, each one is named a pool, okay? Even though the title is raids, each one is a pool, okay? In these pools, you can stake Night. I don't have any right now. You can stake Night and earn other assets. So I could stake Night and earn more Night. I could stake Night and earn Wolfies, DEP. I could earn more Forge. I could earn Guard. There's a lot of different things you can do with that asset. So they're incentivizing you to not sell their asset by allowing you to use it as essentially a money printer for other assets, okay? This is how you can use farms and pools to generate assets passively out of thin air for free. This can be a powerful strategy if deployed using the right assets. This is important. I'll underline that, okay? So if you want to learn more about the process of farming and pools and all of that, be sure to check out our video, Passive Asset Accumulation, on our YouTube channel to learn the strategies we deploy in more depth. Okay, I think that's pretty much it that we have here. So if anybody has a question that's directly relevant to one of the things that I talked about here, go ahead and ask it. If we don't, we'll stop the recording and we'll just do some Q&A afterwards. Okay, cool. I'm going to stop the recording